Good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. We are all candidates of the Democratic Party with a capital D, but this is an event in democracy with a small d. And I just think it's great that you're here and we're able to engage in these issues. I'm going to talk a little bit about me and where my values come from, and then what I'd like to work on if I were elected to Rhode Island Senate. I was blessed to grow up here in a family that believed in public service. A long time ago, that was the Little League baseball field. And, a long time ago, that was the Little League baseball field, and I remember catching a ball in right field that I shouldn't have caught. I stayed here through high school. I went to classical high school, and like most high school students, I didn't really appreciate it at the time. But over the years, I realized that was a very valuable, not only academic education, it prepared me for the finest post-secondary education I could have wished for, but also it was a social education, because at classical, we had people from all parts of the city and all walks of life. And I came to realize that our public schools in their ideal form, and as Ray has said, we're very far from that here in Providence, but in its ideal form, our public schools can not only present the American dream to every kid who goes there, but also can bring people together from all neighborhoods and all walks of life to learn how to live with each other. And we don't have a gated community. We have people with shared values and experiences. And that's been an ideal I've tried to pursue since shortly after my return here. I returned in 1990 with Lauren, and we raised a family, and I got to practice law. And for my first 10 years here, my community service was primarily in the Jewish community, serving in board and leadership positions at Temple Bethel and at what was then known as the Jewish Family Service. I began to pivot in 2000 when I had an opportunity to serve on the Providence School Board. And this was an opportunity for me to work with people, again, from across the city and think more about the ideal of public education. As an outsider, my kids did go to the public schools for middle school and high school, but that was before they were in middle school. I was able to see problems from a different perspective. They had an issue at the time of a zero tolerance policy for kids, whereby if someone found a razor in a kid's backpack that their father had used for construction, they were immediately suspended for the rest of the year. And when I got there, my colleagues on the school board kept on saying, "Oh, this is such a terrible thing. We hate to do this, but we're required to do it." And since, as an outsider, we said, "Why don't we just change the policy?" And in fact, we changed the policy, and it was probably one of the first times that the American Civil Liberties Union had something nice to say about the Providence School Board. I got involved in other education projects over the years. Nathan Bishop School, they were going to close it in 2006. A group of parents advocated, I was one of the founding members, to reopen the school as a better school. And now it serves many people in our neighborhood. Again, far from perfectly, but it has the possibility of the ideal of public education. I served in a grassroots group to advocate for a more fair funding formula called Rhode Island is Ready. I helped found the Classical Alumni Association, through which alumni contribute private money to a public school, which is the first time that has happened in the state of Rhode Island. I then went on to serve on the city council and worked on the Category 5 fiscal hurricane and on redistricting reform. And also, this thing really annoyed a lot of people in our neighborhood. I figured out how to make people who had Florida license plates register their cars in Rhode Island and pay motor vehicle tax. People didn't like that here, but it was very good for the city. It generates $3 million a year of revenue. So, and also I was involved as a private attorney. At one point, I had a debate with Alan Dershowitz, who came down here and said that all the Rhode Island federal judges were anti-Semitic because he didn't like the way a judge had ruled against him in a case. And I gathered a group of Jewish attorneys to say, no, you may not like that judge, but that judge is not anti-Semitic. In fact, our judicial system is a fair system, our federal judicial system. So in terms of how these inform my wish to serve in the Rhode Island Senate, some of the most important issues that I was working on in the City Council have moved up to the Senate, including our city's finances and our pension system, if it's not resolved, could lead us to insolvency. We need help in the state. In the public schools. And I was so interested to hear Ray's story where he said he learned that the General Assembly is responsible for fixing our schools. I learned it a different way. I brought a case in Superior Court to argue that there was a right to education under Rhode Island's Constitution. The Supreme Court said no, there is no such right. You have to go to the General Assembly if you want to fix it. And that's probably where Ray got his advice. One of the things I believe is that if we ever put that to the voters would say, no, there is a right, or yes, there is a right to education under Rhode Island's Constitution. And if that were amended, I believe that that could be a real impetus for dramatic improvement in our schools. This is what happened in 1993 in Massachusetts. They had a very famous Educational Reform Act that year, through which Massachusetts has become the best public school system in the country. They did that because their court ruled, different from ours, that there was a right to education under the Massachusetts Constitution. Because our court did not see it that way, we need to go through the process of having a resolution approved by the General Assembly and having it put to the voters. I think if it ever got to the voters, it would be a very easy vote for all of us. I believe that public education is something that can help preserve the middle class in Providence, can bring opportunities to people across the city, and is important for our future as residents of Providence. And similarly with the fiscal stability. There are many other issues that I would like to discuss if I had the chance, but that would be my focus as a member of the Rhode Island Senate, and I ask you please to consider me when you go in and vote. Thanks very much.